first. More information, forms available, clevelandchamber.com. And now a man who will never win the Small Business Person of the Year award is Dan Good, is the general manager of Crown here in Cleveland. Well, you're not really a small business, I don't think. Maybe you are.
Yeah, I think sadly, what's considered a small business nowadays get pretty big.
Well,
So, yeah.
that's true, and maybe we're a nonprofit too. That's we're not supposed to be, but we are.
Yeah.
Dan Good is the general manager of Crown. All right, first of all, how are you? What's happening?
Things are great. We're having a great month. Spring is here, so it's always a blast. We just had the Crown Spring Social on Saturday, which we had about 60 modified Jeeps there.
Really?
There were about 20 of them went over our track, which was awesome. We have video of that. I think Gideon, your guy, has some great video that'll be coming out that hopefully you guys can share, but it'll certainly be on our Facebook page. It was awesome. It was the Nuga Jeep Club, and it was about 7 other Jeep clubs kind of combined. I bought food that I thought would be more than enough, and we had to go get a second round because we were providing hot dogs, hamburgers, drinks, and there were 2 of us that were supposed to be manning the grill. It ended up being 4 of us. It was awesome, and it is funny to see the people. They made up their Jeeps and all sorts of spring flowers. So up north we call it hokey. It was just awesome. They looked, you know what I mean? They had Easter bunnies on their Jeeps. They had, beautiful flowers. One lady had blow-ups on her Jeep, and it was a pretty cool event.
The passion for Jeeps around here is incredible, isn't it?
It really is. It's interesting. I mean, you don't like to throw around the cult word, but but my gosh, you can't get much closer.
Of course, Crown is your home of Jeep here in Cleveland and Bradley County. All right, so let's talk incentives and tell me about the specials this month at Crown.
Well, I think I'd be remiss in not saying something about obviously you probably hear the way I talk. I'm from the north. And up in the north, about 35 to 45% of the people on new cars would lease the vehicle. Down at our corporate headquarters in Florida, about 35 to 40% of the people lease vehicles. Dublin, Ohio, where we have 4 stores, about 35 to 40% lease vehicles. Here in the south, in Georgia and Tennessee.
We're in Tennessee.
Yeah,
yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
That's good. I get nervous being on the radio and TV.
Don't worry about it.
So about 2% do. So it's interesting, and I think one of the best services I could provide is because I'm aware of leasing, and the problem is you'll have people, I would never lease, or they say, I would only lease, and neither one is the right answer. It's like a red and blue shirt. If you have purple pants on, you may not want the blue shirt, Your lifestyle, if you're doing 30,000 miles a year, leasing isn't for you. But as I was talking to you off the air, if your son or daughter's going to college, they don't get a car their first year, but then they keep a car for 3 years, well, typically you're going to get a much lower payment, and at the end of the lease you can walk away, rather than have this obligation of, is this person going to want the car after they graduate? Because sometimes they make a little money, and now they want a new car, and we all know what happens with loans. We tend to owe a little more than the car's worth if we're financing it for 72 months. So this just cuts it down, and it's not a right or wrong answer, and I would actually ask anyone that has questions on leasing to email me, dgood@crowncars.com, at the dealership, because I'll answer. And I don't mind if they're saying they're looking at a Kia, if they're looking at a Ford, if they're looking at a Honda, and they had questions about leasing. Obviously, I'd love it if they pick a Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram product. That's what I sell. But leasing can make sense for the family, and if they're looking at something and they want to find a way to get a payment that's more affordable, but in a safe, reliable car, it is a valid option. So, and all the scary stuff that they talk about has roots in validity, but usually unnecessarily. For example, if you return your lease in and, they'll nickel and dime you for damages. They don't. If you have a ding on your car that you can cover up, flip a dollar bill in half, and you can cover that ding with half a dollar bill, they don't charge you. Now, granted, if it's a bullet hole, they will charge you because it punctures. But small stuff they don't go after you for, and they can't. So there is certain protections, and all that stuff can be fettered out before you lease. But if you're looking to save money, to get a reliable car, that's the way. Because to save money and get a used car, sometimes you're paying the service department repairs. So again, that's kind of what we have going on. And obviously I bring it up because there's some incredible lease specials with Ram and Jeep right now. Okay. Yeah, almost little, you know, the monthly payment, you're probably saving $250 compared to financing it. Okay, wow. So if you do think of that 3 years, $250, you're putting a lot of money, you're saving a lot of money in your pocket. Yeah. If you don't believe in leasing, put the $250 in the bank. I promise you that'll pay than any game that they could possibly play, which they don't play games. Yeah, sure. But it's a great option, and again, it's something that doesn't, and it's not just our dealership. It's you talk to other dealerships, and they're just like, it's just not something people in Tennessee and Georgia seem to do. But it's a great option. Yeah. And I'll get off my pedestal now.
Well, and as you see about Dan, very honest, and he just tells you like it is. And if you appreciate that, most people do around here, then go see him. All right. So if people do want to purchase vehicles, talk about that. Tell me what's happening this month.
Unprecedented $8,000 off 2500s. Yeah, it's a big number. Up to $20,000 off on Grand Wagoneers. So we still have great savings. The Gladiator, incredible savings on that. We have, they just coming out with the 25, so there are a couple of 24s left over. That's the secret sauce. If you can pick up a 24, it's an incredible savings. So pretty exciting time to get down there. And as well, the pre-owned cars that we have, they, still typically most of them are still under warranty by the manufacturer. So low risk in picking one of those up, but there's some great options. So
certainly so. It's Crown, of course. They are your home for especially Jeep and Ram here in Cleveland, but don't forget Chrysler and Dodge and that pre-owned inventory. Dan Good. Dan, good to see you.
Nice seeing you guys.
All right, buddy.